The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They controlled 47 different species across thousands of worlds. Every species paid tribute to the Council. They gave minerals, food, technology, and workers. No one had ever refused. No one had ever said no. Admiral stood at the window of the orbital station Unity. She looked down at Earth, blue and green and beautiful. Behind her, 20 officers waited in silence. They had been waiting for 3 hours. The alien ships had arrived that morning, and now everyone on Earth was watching the sky. "They're docking," said Captain Park. He was a tall man with tired eyes. He had not slept in 2 days. Turned from the window. "How many ships?" "3 big ones. Our scanners say each one is larger than our biggest carrier." The docking bay doors opened with a soft hiss. Cold air rushed in, carrying a strange smell like burning metal and flowers. Then the aliens walked in. There were 5 of them. Their leader was a creature called. It stood 8 feet tall. Its body was made of something that looked like crystal and bone. Its face had no nose, no lips, just 2 large black eyes and a small mouth. It wore long silver robes that touched the floor. Stopped in front of. A small device on its chest made a humming sound, and then it spoke in perfect English. "You are the leader of this station." Kept her face calm. "I am Admiral. I speak for the United Earth Defense Force." "Good." Its black eyes moved slowly, looking at each human in the room. "Your species has been observed for some time. You have developed faster than light travel. You have touched the void between stars. This is good. This means you are ready." "Ready for what?" asked. Turned those cold, black eyes toward him. "Ready to join the Galactic Council. Ready to take your place among the civilized species of the galaxy." For a moment felt hope. Maybe this was good news. Maybe humanity was about to join something wonderful. But then she saw the way looked at them. It was the way a farmer looks at cattle. "What does joining the council mean?" asked carefully. Reached into its robes and pulled out a small crystal. It placed the crystal on the table between them, and suddenly a hologram appeared in the air. Numbers and images floated before their eyes. "Tribute," said. "All species under council protection pay tribute. This is the law. This is how things have been for 12,000 years." Looked at the numbers. Her blood turned cold. 30% of your annual mineral production will be collected. 20% of your agricultural output will be taken. And 1 million of your people will be sent to work across council space each year. The room was silent. No one moved, no one breathed. 1 million people. His voice was barely a whisper. "You want to take 1 million of our people every year." "Workers are needed," said simply. "Your species is strong and adaptable. You will be useful in many places." His hands were shaking, but she kept them behind her back. "And if we refuse?" Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "No species has ever refused. The council protects those who serve. The council destroys those who do not." It paused. "You have 1 solar cycle to prepare your first offering. 1 of your Earth years. Use this time wisely." Turned and walked back toward its ship. The other aliens followed in silence. "Wait," called out. "What happens to the people you take? Where do they go?" Stopped but did not turn around. "They go where they are needed. They serve until they can serve no more. This is the way of things." Then it was gone. The alien ships undocked and moved away from the station. Within an hour they had left Earth's orbit. But they did not leave the solar system. They waited at the edge, 500 warships hiding in the darkness beyond Pluto. Stayed at the window for a long time after everyone else had left. She thought about the numbers. 30% of minerals, 20% of food, 1 million people, every year, forever. She thought about her daughter, who was 12 years old. She thought about her parents in. She thought about every child on Earth who would grow up under the shadow of the council. Came back into the room. "Admiral, the president is calling. Everyone is calling. The whole world saw those ships." Nodded slowly. Tell them I'm coming. She looked at Earth one more time. It looked so small from up here, so fragile. 8 billion people living their lives not knowing that everything was about to change. We have 1 year, she said quietly. 1 year to do what? Asked. Did not answer. She did not know. But as she walked toward the communication room, she made a promise to herself. She would not let her people become slaves. She would not watch them be taken away to serve alien masters on distant worlds. Whatever came next, whatever the cost, she would find a way. She had to. The world changed overnight. Every news channel showed the same images. Alien ships in Earth's orbit, the tall crystal creature called, and the numbers, those terrible, terrible numbers. People reacted in different ways. Some prayed, some rioted, some pretended nothing had happened and went to work like normal, but everyone was scared. Everyone knew that life would never be the same. In Seoul, Defense Minister sat in a bunker deep underground. Across from her sat President. He was an old man with white hair and kind eyes, but today those eyes looked hollow. Today he looked like a man who had not slept in weeks. Tell me the truth, he said. Can we fight them? Opened a folder and spread papers across the table. Our fleet has 900 combat ships. The Council has 500 warships waiting beyond Pluto, but our intelligence says that's just a small part of their navy. They have hundreds of thousands of ships spread across the galaxy. So we cannot win. No, sir, we cannot win. President closed his eyes. What about other options? Can we hide? Can we run? There is nowhere to run. They know where we are. They will always know where we are. Negotiation. Shook her head. I studied every record we could find about species that tried to negotiate. The Council does not negotiate. They take what they want, always. The President was quiet for a long time. Outside, could hear the distant sound of protesters shouting in the streets. They wanted the government to do something, anything. What do other countries say? The President asked finally. Everyone is scared. The Americans want to fight. The Europeans want to negotiate. The Chinese want more time to study the situation. Nobody agrees on anything. Similar conversations were happening all over the world. In Ayers, Fleet Admiral Han ran battle simulations on her computer. She ran them over and over again, changing the numbers, trying different strategies. Every simulation ended the same way. Human defeat. Human extinction. In Geneva, Diplomat read files about the 47 species that served the Council. He looked for hope. He looked for examples of species that had found freedom or happiness under Council rule. He found nothing. Every species that joined the Council slowly disappeared. Their cultures died. Their populations shrank. After a few thousand years, they became nothing more than servants. The months passed. The deadline grew closer. And still, humanity could not agree on what to do. Some people wanted to accept the tribute demands. They said it was better to live as servants than to die as warriors. They said humans could adapt to anything. They said maybe the Council would be kind. Others wanted to fight. They did not care about the odds. They said death was better than slavery. They said humans had always fought for freedom. They said their ancestors would be ashamed if they surrendered without a fight. Admiral spent those months preparing for war. She did not know if the world would choose to fight, but she wanted to be ready. She ordered factories to build new ships. She trained new soldiers. She studied Council technology and looked for weaknesses. Her daughter asked her one night, "Mama, are the aliens going to take me away?" Held her close. "No, baby, I won't let anyone take you." "Promise." "I promise." But did not know if she could keep that promise. Every night she dreamed of Council ships filling the sky. Every night she dreamed of her daughter being dragged away to work on some distant world. The final month arrived. President called a meeting of all world leaders. They gathered in a secure virtual conference. Every president, every prime minister, every general and diplomat. Hundreds of faces on hundreds of screens. "We have run out of time," President said. His voice was heavy with sadness. "We must decide now. Do we fight, or do we submit?" The arguments went on for hours. Some leaders shouted. Some leaders cried. Some leaders threatened to break away and make their own decisions. Finally, when it seemed like nothing would ever be decided, Admiral stood up. "I have something to say." Everyone went quiet. They knew who she was. They knew she had met the aliens face to face. "I have thought about this every day for 11 months, said. "I have studied the council. I have looked at our options, and I have reached a conclusion." She looked at the faces around her. Some were old, some were young, some were brave, some were afraid. But they were all human. They were all her people. "We cannot win a war against the council. The mathematics are clear, but there are things more important than winning." She walked to the center of the room and placed a single word on the main display. "I say we send them this." Everyone stared at the screen. One word, just one word. "No." The room erupted. People shouted questions and objections, but slowly, one by one, they began to nod. One by one, they began to understand. It was not about winning. It was about standing up. It was about telling the galaxy that humans would not kneel. President looked at the word for a long time. Then he looked at. "Are you sure about this, Admiral?" Nodded, "I am sure." The president turned to the other leaders, all in favor. Hands rose across every screen, not all of them, but enough, more than enough. "Then it is decided," President said. "Send the message." Ambassador stood in the grand chamber of its flagship. The room was beautiful in the way the council liked. Tall ceilings made of dark metal, lights that floated in the air like small stars, screens that showed the positions of every ship in the fleet. 500 warships waited at the edge of the human solar system. They had been waiting for 1 year, had expected this to be easy. Small species always submitted. They saw the size of the council fleet and they understood their place. This was how it had always been. The communication officer approached with a tablet. "Ambassador, we have received humanity's response." Took the tablet. It expected to see lists of minerals, shipping schedules, names of humans selected for labor, the usual documents that came with submission. Instead, there was only one word. "No." Stared at the screen. Its crystal face did not move, but inside something shifted. Confusion, then disbelief, then something it had not felt in a very long time. "Is this complete?" asked. "Yes, Ambassador. We checked multiple times. This is the entire message." "Run analysis. Look for hidden codes, secret meanings, something." The communication officer worked for several minutes. Then it shook its head. "There is nothing else, just this word. It has been sent in every human language. It means the same thing in all of them. No." Set down the tablet. For 12,000 years, the Council had demanded tribute from new species. For 12,000 years, every species had submitted. Some had tried to negotiate. Some had begged for mercy. Some had asked for time, but none had ever simply said no. "They do not understand," said finally. "They are young and foolish. They do not know what they have done." "Should we contact them again, Ambassador? Perhaps explain the consequences more clearly?" "No, they made their choice. Now they will learn." On Earth, the news spread within hours. The government had tried to keep the response secret, but secrets did not last long anymore. Someone leaked the message, and suddenly everyone knew. Humanity had said no. People gathered in the streets, not to protest this time, to wait, to watch, to be together when the end came. Lieutenant sat in the cockpit of her fighter. She was 28 years old with short black hair and steady hands. She had dreamed of being a pilot since she was a little girl. She had never dreamed of fighting aliens. Her squadron commander, Major Shin, walked along the deck of the carrier Brave. He stopped at each fighter and spoke with each pilot. When he reached, he climbed up to her cockpit. "How are you feeling, Lieutenant?" Looked at her instrument panels. Everything was green, everything was ready. "Scared," she admitted. Nodded. "Good. Only fools feel no fear. The brave are those who feel fear and fight anyway." "Do you think we can win, Major?" Was quiet for a moment. "No, I do not think we can win, but I think we can make them remember us. I think we can show them what humans are made of." He put his hand on her shoulder. "My grandfather fought in a war long ago. Before he died, he told me something. He said, 'I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees.' I did not understand then. I understand now." Looked out the window of the carrier. Earth hung in the darkness, beautiful and blue. Somewhere down there, her mother and father were watching the sky. Somewhere down there, her little brother was probably playing games and pretending everything was normal. "I understand too," she said. The words spread through the fleet, through the ground forces, through every human who heard them. They wrote them on the sides of their ships. They carved them into their armor. They painted them on walls and whispered them in prayers. Better to die standing than to live kneeling. On the Council flagship gave the order. Move the fleet into attack position. Prepare for subjugation operations. Rules of engagement, Ambassador. Thought for a moment. Usually the Council used limited force against new species. Destroy a few cities, kill a few million, and the rest would surrender quickly. It was efficient. It was practical. But these humans had said no. They needed a stronger lesson. Maximum force, said. Destroy their fleet completely. Bomb their major cities. Kill enough of them that the survivors understand their mistake. And if they still do not surrender. His crystal face shifted, something that might have been a smile. Then we kill more of them. We keep killing until they kneel or until they are all dead. Either way, the message will be clear. No one says no to the Council. The 500 warships began to move. They crossed the darkness of space, getting closer and closer to Earth. In her fighter, closed her eyes and thought about her family. She thought about the beach near where she had played as a child. She thought about her first flight, how free she had felt among the clouds. Then she opened her eyes and gripped the controls. All fighters, this is Lieutenant. The enemy is coming. Let's show them who we are. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The Battle of Sol began at 3:47 Earth Standard Time. Would remember that moment for the rest of her life. The stars seemed to shake as 500 Council warships appeared on the scanners. They moved slowly, confidently, like wolves approaching sheep. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Defiance, humanity's largest battleship. Around her, 800 human ships formed a defensive line between the enemy and Earth. All ships, this is Admiral. Today we fight for our home. Today we fight for our children. Some of us will not survive, but those who come after us will know that we did not surrender. We did not kneel. We stood up and we fought. Across the fleet, humans listened to her words, pilots in their fighters, engineers in their engine rooms, soldiers in their armor. They were scared, but they were ready. The Council fleet expected this to be easy. They had done this many times before. Smaller species always broke quickly. A few hours of battle, a few cities destroyed, and the survivors would come crawling to beg for mercy. But the humans did not break. The first wave of human ships charged directly at the Council fleet. They were destroyers, small and fast, crewed by volunteers who knew they would not return. Captain Park led them from the front. Full speed ahead, he commanded. Get as close as you can. Council weapons tore through the human destroyers. Ship after ship exploded in balls of fire. But the humans kept coming. They did not slow down. They did not turn away. The first destroyer reached a Council battleship and detonated its core. The explosion was massive. The Council ship broke apart. 2 more destroyers hit another Council vessel, then 3 more, then 5 more. watched the battle with growing confusion. Why are they ramming us? They are destroying themselves. They are taking our ships with them, Ambassador. That makes no sense. They cannot win this way. But the humans kept coming. For every human ship that died, they took 2 or 3 council ships with them. The mathematics were still against them, but the cost was rising higher than anyone had expected. Flew through the chaos of battle. Energy beams sliced through the darkness around her. Ships exploded on all sides. She could hear her squadron members dying on the radio, their voices cut short by fire and metal. "Squadron leader down," someone shouted. "Lieutenant, you're in command." Did not have time to think. She did not have time to mourn. "All remaining fighters follow me. Target the carrier at coordinate 77. She pushed her engines to maximum. Her fighter screamed through space, dodging enemy fire, weaving between burning wreckage. Behind her, a dozen fighters followed. They hit the carrier with everything they had. Missiles, energy weapons, and finally, when all else was spent, they rammed the ship itself. Pulled away at the last second, her wings scraping against the carrier's hull. Behind her, 3 of her pilots did not pull away. They crashed into the carrier's bridge, and the massive ship began to fall. On Earth, the Council landed ground troops in North America, Europe, and Asia. They expected quick surrender. They were wrong. Doctor worked in a bunker beneath island. She was a scientist, not a soldier, but scientists could be useful in war. "The enemy troops are landing near Seoul," her assistant reported. Looked at her screens. The Council soldiers were tall, armored, carrying weapons that could vaporize a human in a single shot. They looked impossible to stop. "Show me what we have," said. They had mining lasers converted into weapons, construction drones carrying explosives, agricultural machines turned into mobile shields, nothing compared to Council technology, but it was something. "Send everything," commanded. "Make them pay for every step." The ground war was brutal. Council soldiers marched through cities, expecting civilians to run and hide. Instead, they found humans fighting back with anything they could find. In the ruins of Tokyo, an old man drove a truck full of explosives into a group of Council soldiers. In London, teenagers threw bottles of fire at enemy positions. In Cairo, families hid in basements with kitchen knives, ready to fight to the last. Major Shin led the defense of. His forces were outnumbered 10-1, but they held the line for 3 days. They fought in the streets, in the buildings, in the tunnels beneath the city. On the 4th day, the Council brought in heavy weapons and leveled entire blocks, pulled his remaining soldiers back, then led them forward again. They fought in the rubble of their own homes. "Sir, we should retreat," one of his soldiers said. "We cannot hold." Shook his head. "There is nowhere to retreat to. This is our home. We stand here." In space, the human fleet was dying. Admiral watched her ships fall one by one. The Brave, the Unity, the Hope, names that meant something, ships crewed by people she knew. "Admiral, we've lost 70% of the fleet." Nodded, her hands were steady on the console. "How many did we take with them?" "Almost 200 Council ships, ma'am." 200. It was more than anyone had expected. It was not enough. "All remaining ships," said into the radio, "form up around the Defiance. We make our last stand here." Watched the humans gather for their final fight. Part of it felt something strange. Respect, perhaps, or maybe just confusion. "They could surrender now," the tactical officer said. "They could save millions of lives." "They will not surrender," replied. "I am beginning to understand that." The final battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the human fleet was gone, every ship destroyed, every sailor dead. But the Council fleet had paid dearly. 300 ships lost, tens of thousands of Council soldiers dead. On the surface of Earth, the fighting continued. Humans refused to stop. They fought with weapons, with tools, with their bare hands. The war that expected to last 1 week lasted 11 months. And even then, even when the cities were ruins and the population had been cut almost in half, the humans did not surrender. They simply ran out of soldiers to fight. The war ended on a morning in what used to be Seoul. The city was gone. Towers that once touched the clouds were now broken bones of metal and stone. The streets were covered in ash and silence. Ambassador walked through the ruins with a guard of council soldiers. It had come to see the planet it had conquered, to understand these strange creatures who had refused to kneel. Near a collapsed building, found a human soldier leaning against a wall. Major Shin was covered in blood and dust. His rifle lay across his knees, empty and useless. He was dying, but his eyes were open and clear. Stopped in front of him, the translator hummed as it spoke, "You are a leader among your people." Laughed, it was a painful sound, wet with blood. "I was a soldier, just a soldier. Your people fought well, better than any species we have ever encountered." His crystal face showed nothing, but its voice carried something like curiosity. "I must understand. Why did you fight? You knew you could not win. The mathematics were clear from the beginning." Closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, there was a small smile on his broken face. "You still do not understand, do you? Explain it to me." Coughed and blood ran down his chin. "We did not fight to win. We fought to show you something, to show the galaxy something." "What?" "That not everyone kneels, that some species would rather die on their feet than live on their knees." Looked up at the sky. "You will remember us. Every species you rule will hear about us, and they will wonder. They will ask themselves, if the humans could say no, why can't we?" Was silent for a long moment. "You sacrificed billions of your people for an idea." "For hope," corrected. "We gave them hope." He coughed one more time. Then his head fell back against the wall and he was still. His eyes stayed open, looking at the sky. Stood there for a long time, then it turned and walked away. The council declared victory. They installed governors on Earth. They began extracting tribute from the survivors. They built bases and brought in workers from other species to help rebuild the planet. But something was different this time. The other tribute species had watched the war. They had seen the small blue planet stand against the might of the council. They had seen humans charge into certain death rather than surrender. They had heard about the word that humanity had sent. No. On the mining colonies of the workers began to whisper in the dark. They shared stories about the humans, about the ships that had rammed the council fleet, about soldiers who had fought with knives when their guns were empty, about a whole planet that had chosen death over submission. They were just one species, an old told the young ones. Small and weak compared to the council, but they said no, they proved it could be done. Similar whispers spread among the dozen other species who had served the council for thousands of years. For the first time, they began to imagine something different. A galaxy without the council, a future where their children would be free. 2 years after Earth fell, the first rebellion started on a mining station. The workers refused to meet their quota. When council soldiers came to punish them, the workers fought back. Most of them died, but some survived and they ran to other stations, spreading the word. Then they rebelled, then 3 more species at once. Watched the reports come in from across the galaxy. Rebellions everywhere. Tribute shipments delayed or destroyed. Council soldiers dying on worlds that had been peaceful for centuries. "How is this happening?" the council demanded. "These species have been obedient for thousands of years." Knew the answer. It had seen it in the eyes of a dying soldier in the ruins of Seoul. The humans had planted a seed, an idea, and ideas could not be killed with weapons. On Earth, the survivors rebuilt. It was slow and painful. Many people had died. Many cities were gone forever. But humans were good at surviving. They had done it before, through ice ages and plagues and wars. They would do it again. Lieutenant had survived the battle. She was one of 17 pilots who had lived through the war. Now she helped coordinate the reconstruction of the city where she had grown up. Doctor worked to restore food production. The council took most of what Earth grew, but the humans found ways to hide some for themselves. Small acts of defiance that kept hope alive. In the ruins of the old United Nations building, someone built a monument. It was simple. Just a large block of stone with one word carved into it, large enough to be seen from orbit. No. People came from all over the world to see it. They touched the stone and remembered what humanity had done. They told their children the stories of the war. They made sure no one would ever forget. 15 years after the war, the council collapsed. The rebellions had spread too far, too fast. The tribute stopped coming. The fleet was stretched too thin. Species that had served rose up and demanded freedom. When the last council ship fled to the edges of known space, delegations from the newly free species came to Earth. They came not as masters or servants, but as equals, as friends. President met them at the monument. She was a young woman who had been a child during the war. She remembered hiding in a basement while council ships burned the sky. She remembered her father dying to protect her. A delegate stepped forward. It was a small creature with skin and large eyes. Its ancestors had served the council for 3,000 years. "Your people saved us all," the delegate said. "You showed us that freedom was possible. How can we ever repay you?" Looked at the monument, at the single word that had started everything. "Remember," she said, "that is all we ask. Remember that no empire lasts forever. Remember that one word can change everything. Remember that when someone demands you kneel, you always have a choice." She turned to face the delegates from 100 free worlds. "We did not fight because we thought we could win. We fought because some things are more important than survival. Freedom, dignity, hope." She smiled, and in her smile was all the strength of humanity. "Remember that, and never let anyone take those things from you." That night across the galaxy, fires burned in celebration. Species that had never known freedom danced and sang and wept with joy. And on a small blue planet in an ordinary solar system, humans looked up at the stars. They had lost so much, but they had gained something greater. They had proven that the darkness could be defeated, one word at a time. No.